Imagine being in the middle of the zombie apocalypse and thinking to yourself, man, I wished I learned this skill or that skill. I learned how to drive, I learned how to swim before all of these happened. So for this episode, we'll be looking at what are the things that you can do to improve your chances of surviving the zombie apocalypse. And over the last few episodes, we have talked a bit about the zombie apocalypse, what kind of virus it's going to be, how you're going to escape the virus, what is your response going to be. And so in this episode, we'll work with the very practical skills and steps that you can do to improve your chances of surviving the zombie apocalypse. And as I go along this video, I'll share some of my own thoughts and my experiences, with like some learning of some of these skills or trying to learn some of these skills and maybe succeeding or failing. And I hope that it helps to motivate you if you need a push or you need a reason to start to learn something new or pick up a new skill. And as always, do remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to support the channel. As always, we always strive to include some content that helps you so that between the time that you start watching the video and the end of the video, you have something that you take away from this video and learn something or improve something. Or if you can comment and tell me what you think I should be improving, I'll be glad to read through those and learn from you as well. And so without further ado, let's start with the first one. And it's going to be kind of a no-brainer, but I think it's actually very important and very helpful in your life. And it's improving your own physical fitness. And I don't just mean like hitting the gym or what. It's also a mix of not only strength, but stamina and also your functional movements. And the logic behind this is pretty simple. I know we have played all the games and watched all the movies where people are fighting off zombies, shooting down the zombies, bashing in the heads of the zombies, or wielding weapons and fighting off hordes or escaping from the zombies, while cutting off the arms of zombies and stuff. But in the actual zombie apocalypse scenario, the chances are you're not going to be putting yourself out there in such a risky situation to fight zombies because most of us probably won't even have the courage to do that. Instead, what's more practical and more realistic is that you'll be trying to escape from the zombies, or if you have already encountered a zombie and you have no choice but to kind of fight the zombie, you'll be focusing on pushing away the zombie or ensuring that you're able to dodge the zombie's attacks, especially his bites, which are the main source of infection. And so you won't really want to engage the zombie like over a prolonged period, sparring or figuring out how to kill the zombie. The main focus is to get out of the situation, and only in certain isolated situations, like maybe you are only facing off one or two zombies in a quite an isolated area or quiet area, then I think that killing the zombie actually makes sense as compared to running away or hiding from the zombie. And this is actually important because we are playing to our advantage as humans. As we mentioned in our earlier videos, the zombie virus is likely controlling the zombies by controlling their muscle spasms through the nervous system. And so you can guess that their movements are unlikely to be very mobile or agile like how a human would. But for humans, we are more agile, we have more dexterity, we're able to use our hands, use our legs, carry things, move around up and down and stuff. And that's the key factor that every human has that I believe gives them the advantage over zombies. And so naturally, the first thing you have to do to improve your chances of survival would be to improve your physical fitness, your stamina, your strength, and your functional movements like dexterity. So first, for strength, you're going to need strength to do basic stuff like jumping, pushing. Like imagine you have to move through a crowd of zombies, or zombies are getting too close to you. You're going to need the strength to be able to push them away without them being able to retaliate or grab onto you. You also need the strength to be able to perform jumps or leaps across like ledges or above small heights, which can give you the advantage in getting away from zombies. You're also going to need the strength to carry yourself and carry things, because in the zombie apocalypse, it's very unlikely that you're going to be running around empty-handed. You're going to be carrying water, maybe some food supplies, maybe even a compass, some maps, or even a first aid kit and maybe weapons. And so not only will you have to be running away from zombies, you need to be carrying all these things, and you don't really want to be dropping them because it's going to be almost impossible to retrieve them, especially if it's through a horde of zombies. Strength is also important for you to be able to build or enhance your safe house properly, because you're not going to want to use materials that are light to enhance the security, to board up the doors or to block entrances. You're going to use something heavy, large stones, large boulders, generally heavier materials, which would then be naturally stronger than other materials. Stamina is definitely a no-brainer as well, because you'll be needing all that energy to be able to run away from zombies or run to the next point before the night falls. Just that this time, unlike how we are in our current civilization where we are always running with like bare minimum weights on our body, like singlets and shorts, good shoes and no weights, but in the future, we're going to need a mix of strength and stamina to be able to get away from zombies, run long distances or carry things across long distances. So for stamina, I think you can't go wrong with just starting to go for jogs or going for runs. So personally for me, I was never really a runner. I really hated running since I was young. But in my country, they kind of force people to go for like fitness tests and stuff. And I was always almost failing them. It was only when I started to get older, then I started to get a bit more interested in running. Not because I really liked running, but because I had to keep myself fit. And one of the apps that I actually used that helped a lot was actually this app called Zombie Run. And it's actually a pretty good running app because not only does it track your runs with timing and all that stuff, it actually has like a kind of a running story. And each time you activate a run, you're actually running through a mini mission. And they will have like a plot with people, with dialogue, people talking, and you are playing the role of like a supply runner running out to get supplies in this new survival camp. And it was pretty good because not only do you have this dialogue and story that keeps you going and keeps me interested in following the story, having this story also helps me to want to continue running. If, for example, I'm feeling a bit tired, but I know that, okay, I got to run a bit more before the story ends, I'll push myself to run and play through the story so that at least I can start the next mission on my next run. In addition, I think when you slow down a bit too much, that you actually hear more of the zombie sounds, like zombies snarling and growling in your earpiece. And so it was kind of realistic and it added to that flavor as well. And this is still beneficial for you even if a zombie apocalypse never happens, because there's a lot of improvement in your cardiovascular health. You will generally feel like you have more energy. I think there's not really a need for you to overthink it, like, oh, we gotta make sure it's in zone 2, you gotta do like 15 minutes of zone 2 and 10 minutes of zone 1, and I don't even know if there's a zone 3. Just start jogging and start running. Sometimes we do overthink some of these things, and actually they are just excuses for us to not start doing it. So just start going for a jog, buy a good pair of shoes, or even run with any trainers or sneakers that you have. Just pick a distance, maybe like 3 kilometers, then 4 kilometers, and slowly build up to 5. For me, I started at I think 3, and then slowly improved to 8. And then I think 10 to 11 was kind of my max before I started to tone down a bit as I headed more to the gym, which is the next topic. Because I feel like we're not really racing against anyone. I'm not really participating in any races to prove myself or to get any awards or medals. The main focus is, of course, to improve my own health, my own stamina, my cardiovascular health. And if the zombie apocalypse happens, I'm ready. But if it doesn't, I'm having a good life still. And so to me, it's still worth it. Next, for improving your strength, I think the most simple thing is to start going to the gym. Of course, sometimes the gym may be inconvenient or maybe a bit too far or not within your schedule. Then you can start with workouts at home. I think there was a study recently that showed that it doesn't really matter what kind of exercise you did, how heavy it was, but as long as you started doing more exercises, even bodyweight exercises that went beyond your typical resting state, your norms, your body would start to adapt to it. You will gain strength, and overall your entire condition will improve. Of course, hitting the gym helps a lot more because you get access to heavier weights. And I think one of the most important exercises that you have to do for sure is pull-ups. Now, I know it's not going to be easy, and personally for me, it wasn't easy as well. When I was younger, doing all those physical tests that I told you, I was always what we call a zero fighter. I was always 0. I couldn't do a single pull-up. And I was never interested in doing a single pull-up. I just wanted to pass this test and move on. And so I managed to squeeze out 1 pull-up before heading to the army. And of course, I thought that, okay, I could get by the same in the army, but evidently not. In the army, obviously, 1 pull-up was barely enough. And so I started training regularly. I started by doing negative pull-ups, asking people to assist me. And eventually, I built up the strength that I could do, I think, 11 or 12 per set during the army after 1 year. And it's going to be a painful process. But surely in the zombie apocalypse, you're not going to have the same time and luxury to do all these practice and pull-ups, asking people to assist you or doing negative pull-ups. You're going to need to be able to do the pull-ups already and then use it to escape, climb up small ledges, pull yourself up away from zombies. As for heading to the gym, of course, I think out of all the exercises, I think one of the best exercises you can do is the farmer walk. Because it's literally the carrying grocery exercise where you're holding one weight on each hand and doing a walk basically up and down the gym. Because in the zombie apocalypse scenario, that's literally what you may be doing. You may be carrying supplies, water, food, weapons, dragging things here and there with injured companions. You may be carrying them to a safer location. And this helps your body overall to build the strength to be able to carry weights as you walk or speed walk, because the weights may not always be on your hand, and your whole body needs to work together to be able to carry a heavier backpack. So apart from that, the second thing I think you can do to improve your chances of surviving the zombie apocalypse would be to pick up functional skills that are transferable from your current life to the zombie apocalypse. For example, driving, learning how to swim, learning how to ride a bicycle. I think these are skills that are pretty relevant in the current day and age, and also in the zombie apocalypse. Because, well, firstly, you gotta learn how to swim. I think swimming is one of the activities that zombies probably can't do. It is quite unlikely for zombies to be able to swim, because I think swimming requires a very coordinated, dexterous movement. And I'm not sure if the zombie virus is able to do it as well. And so probably swimming may come up more often than you expect in the zombie apocalypse to get away from zombies. And not only that, having a skill like driving or riding a bicycle helps a lot in your mobility and transport during the zombie apocalypse as well. And I actually had something planned, to come up with another video talk about transport options during the zombie apocalypse. But briefly, I think driving is an okay option for the zombie apocalypse. Of course, the issue is with maintenance and petrol. But bicycles are actually a very good choice to replace that, because you barely have to maintain bicycles. It's not that hard to learn how to maintain bicycles, and you don't really need fuel. And it's pretty quiet as well, and can go through tiny alleys and turn the corners. Of course, the other problem with bicycles is that bicycles can't really go very far. Of course, you may say, what about the other transport skills, like learning how to control a boat or fly a plane? I think some of these skills are going to be helpful in the zombie apocalypse. I mean, we have watched the movies, right? Learning how to fly a plane may just turn up unexpectedly because you may find a plane and it helps you to escape. But the other thing that we are considering about in this video is whether it's actually something that's relevant to your current life. And if learning to fly a plane or even flying planes regularly is not something within your scope or your job or your lifestyle and what you can do with where you are in the world, then I think it's not really relevant, because you're just going out of your way to learn something that you may never do again in the future. There are also some sports out there that I feel have certain transferable skills that you can take from. For example, combat sports, I think, are actually quite relevant. If I know we talked about how it's going to be unlikely that you're going to be fighting zombies, but I think combat sports not only teach you how to fight, they also teach you how to move your body, and that helps you a lot in dexterity. You know how to use your body weight to, push things, punch things, kick things. And most likely, if you have picked up like combat sports, like maybe like taekwondo, which is quite popular and common in Asia, karate or savate or krav maga, all these will help you to just deal a quick blow to the zombie. Like if the zombie is getting too close, you can do a swift kick. He just flies away, moves, and you can continue to run. But I think knowing where to strike and how to strike a zombie helps a lot. The other sport that I think is actually helpful is going to be rock climbing. And this is actually related to the point about pull-ups. Because I think rock climbing or bouldering is a very unique sport which actually trains your grip strength and the tendons that are within your wrist, and the forearm. And that's something that's actually very hard for people to train even in the gym. But rock climbing and bouldering helps you to train that, because you're carrying a body weight just by the grip. And who knows, right, in the zombie apocalypse, being able to climb up a small cliff or do a quick move to jump to the second floor by climbing may help you to escape zombies quickly. And having grip strength may actually help you more than you expect. I mean, the zombie apocalypse, not only are you carrying a lot of things, bringing things around, there may also be situations where you may be going through somewhere treacherous with your companions, and one of them actually falls or one of them actually trips and is about to fall, and you grab onto them and never let them go, kind of vibe. And so my takeaway from this would be to maybe consider picking up a functional or practical skill that is of course helpful in the zombie apocalypse, but if the zombie apocalypse never comes, it's helpful in your real life, like learning how to drive or ride a bicycle, or picking up like a combat sport, or rock climbing, bouldering, and that sort. Personally for me, I did get into rock climbing a bit like last year or the year before, and I actually bought a pair of shoes from Decathlon, but turns out I didn't really have the commitment or time to do it, but I may consider going back to it, because I think it's actually kind of interesting sport to learn. You're actually learning also not only to climb or to train your strength, but you're also learning how to use your body weight to climb even higher or odd positions. Now, the third thing that I think will definitely help you improve your chances of surviving the zombie apocalypse is to learn how to cook. Now, I know what you're thinking. In the zombie apocalypse, there's going to be food supplies, right? There's going to be preserved food. There's going to be canned tuna, canned sardines, and all that. And yes, that's true, but only for the first few months. Because if you think about it, everyone in the world, every survivor will be heading for the same supplies. Every one of them will be trying to hoard these canned tuna, these canned sardines, and they'll be consuming them within the first few months, maybe maximum a year. And after that, what's next? Because it's not like a game where you can constantly pick up loot, as you discover new areas in the game or new areas that of the map that you have not explored. Now, of course, you don't really have to be learning how to cook up a grand meal like a Michelin star meal, or learn how to season your food properly. I mean, probably in the zombie apocalypse, you're not going to have to bother with that. But I think what you need to know is the basic understanding of like how to grill something, how to boil something, and most importantly, to be able to see whether the food that you're cooking is actually cooked or not. Or is it still raw? Which makes a big difference in a situation where food poisoning may actually be lethal, because it's hard to find a doctor around and hygiene is at an all-time low. And I mean, I don't think you really need to have like an advanced knowledge of cooking to be able to sustain long in the zombie apocalypse. I do think that most of your food in the zombie apocalypse may just be vegetables and fruits. Of course, meats will be a likelihood, but that of course depends also on whether the zombie virus has spread to like animals and stuff. But I think in the zombie apocalypse, learning how to cook or make a fire, for example, actually maybe helps even more, because I think the process of cooking actually kills a lot of germs and and gets rid of a lot of potential diseases in what you're consuming, and that may actually help you survive way longer. And of course, if you progress past the initial phase and we are starting to build like small communities in larger safe houses, like we mentioned, like for example in an amusement park or on a military base, then cooking becomes a more industrial kind of activity. Of course, you're cooking to supply to an entire camp, entire survival camp. Then in that situation, I think you got to be more intentional with what you're cooking, how you're preparing it, maybe even seasoning. I think other than that, the basics is probably going to be helpful, to sustain and tide over the difficult periods. And on a related note, the other thing that I think will help you a lot to improve your chances of surviving the zombie apocalypse is actually knowing how to distill water. And arguably, this might even be more important than learning how to cook, because water is actually more important than food. But during the zombie apocalypse, water supplies may either be contaminated or difficult to come by. Unlike in games or in movies, it's not going to be likely that we'll find like bottles lying around or jerry cans filled with clean water. And most of us are actually living in like cities or apartment flats. And it's in these situations where we are reliant a lot on water pumps. But in a zombie apocalypse, it is likely that the power will go out, and these pumps may not be working, and you may not even get any water, through your taps that you are so used to. And so more likely than not, during the zombie apocalypse, you'll be trying to find water supplies regularly to top up your water supplies, like water bottle, your jerry cans, your water tanks. But you won't want to be drinking dirty water, because water is actually a carrier of a lot of diseases. For example, during the zombie apocalypse, it is likely that water bodies like small lakes or reservoirs may already be contaminated with either dead bodies or by zombies running through them. And of course, while some of you may be more well prepared and have like a life straw ready, in your survival pack to help you drink water wherever you go, I think knowing how to distill water and ensure that you're drinking clean water is going to be helping you a lot more than you expect. And trust me, in the zombie apocalypse, you're going to be drinking a lot of water, because there's going to be a lot of moving around. You're going to be carrying a lot of supplies. If you're moving to a new safe house, there's a lot of things to carry, and you're going to be sweating a lot. And so water helps you a lot, not only to sustain your life, but to hydrate you and to give you strength to continue, so that you don't get like heat exhaustion and that sort of stuff. Now, the last practical advice that I think will help you improve your chances of surviving the zombie apocalypse is actually to pick up some basic survival skills. Of course, knowing basic campcraft like starting a fire, building a tent, being able to cook food in the camp helps a lot, for sure. But not every one of us has the opportunity to try out camping or to go camping on the weekends. Most of us stay in the cities, and where going for camping may be more of a hassle rather than enjoyment, because you got to buy so much equipment that you don't even have space to store. But what I'm actually referring to is a lot of the survival skills that are actually behind the campcraft. For example, map reading, where in this day and age, I think we have kind of given up the idea of map reading. People are just relying on Google Maps, Apple Maps to find their way around, and it helps you so much. It gives you the direction, walk straight, and the map shows you how to go to the location immediately. But in a zombie apocalypse, it is very unlikely that you have access to a phone, or if you do have access to a phone, it is very unlikely that you have internet connection to go on like Google Maps to find your way around. Instead, you'll be relying a lot more on, I believe, physical maps, if they're even around in the world anymore. And I remember when I was younger, me and my family, we would always use such physical maps when we were traveling, and also in the country that we were in, to get around places that you may never have gone before, or even exploring new places. And it was quite common for a lot of cities back then to provide tourists with these free maps, right, of the city, where are the sites, where are the attractions, where to go, what are the buses to take, what are the food to eat. And you have to rely on, landmarks, location, identifying where is north, where is south, to be able to find your way around, to be able to find out where you are and then find your way to where you want to go. And in a zombie apocalypse, it's very likely that that's what you have to be doing. You're going to have to rely on physical maps, but the difficulty is higher because you may be in a higher stress situation, like escaping from zombies, or there may not be proper lights, and some of the locations may have changed over the years. The map is not as updated, or part of the map, like part of a building is destroyed. You can't really identify where you're going. And of course, related to that is to be able to learn how to use a compass to enhance your map reading skills by identifying where north is, so you know at least which direction to start walking, based on the map. But of course, we have ranked this as the last one because I think it's not really relevant to many people, or it's a bit hard for many people to pick up these skills. But hey, if you have the opportunity to learn this or come across a lesson or video that teaches you this, I do think it's worth a listen or watch to kind of learn, and maybe it helps you in the future. And at the end of the video, I just wanted to say that I think there are many other skills out there that you can learn that will definitely help you in the zombie apocalypse, right? I'm sure many of you will have watched videos of the guy building a tree house in the woods, or learning how to do basic construction stuff, or even more technical skills like mechanical or electrical engineering, learning how to fix not just the basic stuff, electronic devices like a radio, but also like cars, engine. But the issue, of course, as we mentioned at the start, is that some of these skills, while they are helpful definitely for the zombie apocalypse, may not be helpful for you if the zombie apocalypse never comes. And then we don't really want to be giving impractical advice, to do something, learn something for an event that may never really happen. And of course, it's best, right, to do something that helps you in your current state, and also then in the zombie apocalypse, so you kill two birds with one stone. So there you have it. That's all I have for this video. It's really just 5 things that I think will help you a lot to improve your chances of surviving the zombie apocalypse. Personally, for me, I think I'm going to focus more on improving myself physically, not just my strength, but also stamina, dexterity. Maybe even go for some rock climbing or bouldering sessions with my friends. And who knows, maybe even try out distilling water one of these weekends just for fun, to see if it's that easy to do or it's really very, very difficult. And you may spend more time finding the materials to do it rather. But who knows, it's something fun and interesting to learn from. Do let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you think I've made a mistake or you have other things that you feel will actually improve your chances of surviving the zombie apocalypse, do let me know in the comments down below. Do leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video, and see you in the next one.